The Vikings were a very powerful group of people whose lives have remained shrouded in mystery for over 1,000 years. We have loads of information about their settlements, their lifestyle, and a few details about how they'd sail the many seas in search of new lands to conquer. However, their journey around the world was very short-lived compared to other tribes and settlements, leading to many mysteries that are yet to be solved. We're always finding new questions about the Vikings that remain unanswered. One of the biggest questions is how they managed to discover North America almost a half a century before Christopher Columbus, and how their final days were likely spent in Greenland, even though the area would have been completely uninhabitable at the time. Whatever the reasoning is, there's a lot about the Vikings that we have yet to learn, and today we'll be taking a look at several unsolved mysteries of the Vikings. Before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Olaf's final resting place. Where to begin with King Olaf? He's one of the greatest and most well-known Vikings to ever live. Yet we know virtually nothing about his life, his death, or his burial. The legendary King Olaf Guthfrithson, King of Dublin and York, was known as Jorvik for many years. He only earned the title King of Danes after he passed away. Considering how well-loved he was and how many followers respected him, it would be logical to assume he would be given an incredible burial unlike any other. After all, many people considered him to be the king of the Vikings, though to this day we have no idea where he may be buried. However, some researchers believe they found a burial site that could belong to him, though this has not been confirmed just yet. Back in 2005, a team of excavators found a grave near Oldham. They searched through the grave and found the body of a younger man. We don't know for sure how old King Olaf would have been, but it seems like very few Vikings lived to be very old, considering how tragic, aggressive, and unpredictable their lifestyle was. Today, we can expect an average person to live to be 70, 80, maybe even 90 years old. However, most Vikings were around 40 when they passed away. As they examined the young man's grave, they began to find items that suggest he may have been a very powerful person in his years on Earth. He was buried with a belt that would have perfectly fit in with the belts Irishmen and Vikings would have worn at the time. We don't know too much about the items they found buried alongside him, but it seems like he was buried with items created from precious metals, and this would not have been done for your typical burial. For the most part, Vikings tried to make the most of what they had, so any leftover valuables would be scrapped to make weapons or other necessities. Yet, in this instance, that was not the case at all. This led many archaeologists to believe that this could be the body of the long-lost King Olaf. At the very least, they felt as though it may have been a grave of a well-respected member of his entourage. The main reason to believe that this grave could belong to Olaf himself is that we know he led a massive attack on Oldham shortly before he passed away. If this is true, the location would be correct for his burial. However, most people agree that he lost his life during a battle in Norway, so this definitely causes a few details to be called into question. Either way, it's unlikely the true identity of this young man will ever be discovered. The timing and extravagant burial really make you wonder if this could be the legendary King Olaf, but we just don't know for sure. More research needs to be done, though the true resting place of King Olaf may never be found. Ivar the Boneless. Ivar Ragnarsson was a major leader of the Vikings and helped establish their prominence throughout the years. His lessons and way of life would far outlive his time on Earth, and he made a major impact on the Vikings in the years to come. There's a lot of debate regarding whether or not his father may have been the Viking king of Denmark, Ragnar Lodbrok. Back in 865, Ivar took his brothers, Halfdan and Ubba, along with him to join the great pagan army. This would be one of Ivar's greatest accomplishments, helping the group conquer and loot several large areas of England. The original plan was to conquer all of England and claim it as their own, but this obviously did not go as they had planned, though Ivar's leadership would be well respected within the Viking community, leading him to be referred to as the King of the Northmen in Ireland and Britain. Even though he was so well respected, we don't know much at all about his life or his upbringing. As stated, his father is unknown, though his name would certainly suggest that he was once the son of Ragnar. There are more gaps in his history than most historians care to admit, but one of the biggest mysteries surrounding Ivar is his nickname, Ivar the Boneless. Many people may initially hear this name and think of something along the lines of Ivar the Spineless, which may suggest that he was a soft leader who wasn't willing to stand up for the Vikings. However, his history tells the opposite story. Rather, it seems as though Ivar the Boneless may have been a nickname given to him due to a genuine abnormality in his bones, but we don't know for sure. There are many legends about Ivar and countless theories try to explain his unusual nickname. According to Nordic myths and legends, Ivar's bonelessness was the result of a curse that had been placed on him as a result of his father's misdeeds over the years, though, as we said, we still don't know for sure who his father was. However, in 1949, a researcher published a paper that claimed Ivar may have been the only person in documented history to have suffered from a rare bone disease known as vitreous bone disease. This would have caused the victim's bones to have been easily broken, giving the illusion that the person may be boneless if the disease grew bad enough. In essence, the person's bones would take on a structure similar to glass, causing them to be broken or shattered if you so much as stub your toe or knock your hand on a table. This theory may sound crazy and far too literal, considering most of the Vikings had nicknames that were metaphors. However, there's a lot of evidence that may support this theory. One story tells of how Ivar grew so weak after a battle that his soldiers had to carry him home on a large shield. The widely accepted theory about this story is that Ivar had a leg injury, but what if his injury was the result of a tragic bone disorder? If this disorder mostly affected his legs, that would make perfect sense, especially since the same legend claims that Ivar had a very strong upper body, yet his legs are never mentioned. Another possibility is that this was a paraphrase about his impotence. Boneless could have been an innuendo, again potentially brought on by some sort of disease or disorder. This is because, as we know, Ivar never had children. It would have been gravely important for a Viking to carry on his family's name with a child. However, Ivar was never given this luxury, and he died without ever becoming a father. One legend says that this curse was brought upon Ivar by his supposed father as a punishment for his father's lust, though this is likely untrue. In reality, British philologist Rory McTurk believes that Ivar's nickname may simply be a mistranslation. According to Rory, the term boneless is often seen in history as another word for wind. This is similar to how the English language uses a word like stool to refer to a piece of furniture as well as, well, you know. If his name was truly supposed to be interpreted as Ivar of the Wind, this could have been a name given to him because he was so great at navigating the open waters. The Blood Eagle Execution. Fair warning, this is going to get very graphic. If you have a queasy stomach or just don't want to hear the extent the Vikings were willing to go to in order to punish their enemies, you may want to skip ahead. The blood eagle, also known as the blood-haired eagle, was a form of execution that was invented by the Vikings. We don't know for sure that this method was actually used by the Vikings, but we know that they invented the concept. For the sake of everyone involved, I certainly hope this was just a proof of concept situation and that these murderous people never exposed someone to such a horrific demise. The idea behind the blood eagle is that a person would be captured and likely tied up. While they were tied, their back would be cut open and their ribs would be folded outward to represent an eagle's wings. Part of the reason some people believe this could have just been dreamt up by a Viking's wild imagination is that it doesn't seem likely that ribs would stay in place like this during such an awful form of torture. Much like any other bone in your body, if it's separated from the muscle and connective tissue, the bone would likely break and fall off. However, the torture doesn't end there. They would likely move on to the shoulder blades as well, ripping them from the body of the victim and somehow making them appear to be wings as well. Some researchers believe that this method of execution would be used to sacrifice someone to Odin or his ravens. Though, as we mentioned, it's very difficult to tell if executions like this actually took place, or if these are just stories and fantasies about what the Vikings would like to do to their future victims. Considering how bloodthirsty some of the Vikings must have been, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to assume they actually tried this method out a time or two. According to Viking history, there may be two occurrences of this ritual actually taking place. History seems to suggest that Halfdan Langbein would have been subjected to this, as well as the King of Northumbria. Both of these men would have been nobles, and they were executed after taking the life of a father. Regardless of the crime, this type of death just seems a bit excessive. There are a few other notes throughout history that may suggest this form of punishment was used on others as well, but it's possible these could just be mistranslations or fabricated stories, as there isn't any other documentation to confirm that these executions actually took place. One reason many historians believe this is just a fictional idea of what the Vikings would do to someone is because of some details that revolve around this type of execution. According to the documents that have been found, as soon as the ribs of the victim were turned outward, the lungs would then be removed. However, according to some medical examiners, if the ribs are removed from their original location, the lungs would likely collapse and fall off anyway. So it seems like removing them from the body would be nearly impossible, as they would simply remove themselves. So did this awful form of punishment actually happen, or is this just a dramatization to make the reader cringe? The world may never know. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos.